Okay, so welcome to the second week of my flip video. Today I will be helping you with some questions. I will be showing you how I got my answer to the questions, and I hope you find this video really useful and helpful. So let's get started. So our first question: Jesse's bus ride to school is 5 minutes more than 2/3 of the time of Robert's bus ride. Which graph shows the possible times of Jesse's and Robert's bus ride? Okay, so from looking from the graphs, I can understand that our y-intercept is Jesse's bus ride and our x-intercept is Robert's bus ride. Okay, so since we know that Jesse's bus ride is 5 minutes more than, so our starting point for Jesse would be at 5, which is our y-intercept. And A does not show that, it shows Robert's bus ride, which is starting at 5, and we don't know Robert's starting point. We do know it's more than 2/3 of Jesse. So A is definitely not our answer. C is our starting point, so that is definitely an option. B is also another option. D is not an option. It's same thing as A is starting point for Robert's bus ride, and that's not what we need. Okay, so with having these two options, we can rise over run, which is 2 is rise and 3 is run. So we can rise over run from the starting point that we already have in our y-intercept, and let's start off with C. Okay, so 5 is rise over run, so we would rise up 2, and it would be 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, and that definitely does not give us our next coordinate, so it does not intersect with the line. So let's see B. So we would rise 1, 2, and then run 3, 1, 2, 3, and B is definitely our answer because we did everything. We started at the point that was given, and then we rose 2 over 3. So let's move on. Okay, our second question. Which scenario could be modeled by the graph below? Okay, for this one, I honestly did not show a lot of work. All I did was looked at the graph. Excuse me. Okay, so the graph was our answer is definitely C, and the reason it's C is so I knew that y was a 5, and that's the reason I put 5 as our y-intercept, and then we added I added plus 2x because it's, as the graph I see that it is like multiplying by 2. It's near 2. It's in between 2 and 3, and so the number of pounds of apples is y plus 2 times the number of pounds, so it was 2 times the number of pounds, so I definitely knew that 2 was going to be our slope and 5 is most our y-intercept, so that's the reason I had C as my answer for number 2. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so the table below shows the average weight of a type of plankton after several weeks. What is the average rate of change in weight of the plankton from week 8 to 12? Okay, so for this one, all I did was I found the difference between each column, which is time and weight, and I found the difference between 8 and 9, and 9 and 10, and 10 and 11, and 11 and 12. Okay, so as you can see to my left side, okay, where it says average rate of slope, all of the numbers out of all of the differences I found was 1, and then to my left we can see that they were not the same. They changed over time. The weight changed. So when I subtracted 0.04 minus 0.07, it equaled 0.03, and then for 0.07 minus 0.14, I got 0.7, and then 0.14 minus 0.25 equals 0.11, and then 0.25 minus 0.49 equals 0.24. So I added all the numbers, and then I divided it by 4 numbers because that's how many numbers there were, the amount of numbers, and you should get a number that equals to 0.1125, which that's our answer choice for D. And basically all I did was find the average rate of change, and that's what it's asking us. So I found the slope for weeks 8 through 12, and then I added all the numbers and divided it. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so our 22nd question. Sounds kind of weird. Okay, so Dennis compared the y-intercept of the graph of the function 5 of x equals 3x plus 5 to the y-intercept of the graph of the linear function that includes the points in the table below. Okay, for this one, all I did, it was the same thing as the previous question. I found for each column, for x and g of x, I found the difference. And so there wasn't any difference, there was more of increasing. So for number -3, for column x, -3 plus, I found that it was adding +2, so I added +2 equals -1. And then -1 plus 2 equals 1, and 1 plus 2 equals 3. To my right side, I found that the difference was only adding one number each time, so I added 4 plus 1, which is 5, and then 5 plus 1 is 6, and 6 plus 1 is 7. And all we needed to know was to get to 0 for the x. We knew that the function, the y-intercept was 5, so we needed to know the y-intercept of the graph of the linear function that includes the points in the table below. So we needed to know the points below. So my points were, I found the middle points for -1 and 1, which is 0, and then 5 and 6 was 5.5. And so we didn't need the 0, so I brought down the 5.5 and I subtracted it from 5 I got the 5 from the function, which is f of x equals 3x plus 5. And I got 0.5. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. Okay, so the boiling point of water, T, at altitude A measured in feet is modeled by the function T of A equals -0.0018 A plus 212. In terms of altitude and temperature, which statement describes the meaning of the slope? Okay, so I brought down our equation, and for this one, I didn't really show any work. All I did was plug in the our answer choices. But before I even do that, I didn't plug in all the numbers. All I did was well, I knew that our slope was obviously decreasing, so I for A and B, I X'd them out because they were increasing. Well, A was increasing by 18 degrees, and B was increasing by 1.8. So I was left with answer choices for C and D, and they were both decreasing, which matches up with my my slope for the equation. And I divided 1.8 divided by 1,000 feet, and it equals 0.0018. And then for C, I divided 18 divided by 1,000 equals 0.018. And the closest answer to my slope was D, which is 0.0018, and that's the same thing as my slope for the function that was given to us. Because it was asking for which statement describes the meaning of the slope, and that best describes the meaning of our slope. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Okay, so for this one, we definitely need to know our formulas. And if not, we can just look back to our notes. Okay, so let's get started with this question. A line segment has endpoints of J 2 and 4 and L 6 and 8. The points K is the midpoint of J and L. What is the equation? What is an equation of the line perpendicular to JL passing through K? Okay, so in my M equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. That was trying to find my slope. So with the coordinates given, and we definitely have 2 y's and we definitely have 2 x's. So I plugged in 8 minus 4 and divided by 6. Over 6. Excuse me. 6 minus 2. So A equals 4 on both sides, which is equivalent to 1. And okay, for the bottom part, I found the midpoint formula, and I plugged in the numbers. 2 plus 6 divided by 2 equals 4. So 6 plus 2 was 8, and then I divided by 2, which is equal to 4. And then 8 plus 4 equals 12, and then we divided by 2, which is 12. So our coordinates were 4 and 6. Since we already found our slope, on the top part, when we first did it, we already know our slope, so I brought down our point slope formula, and it's y minus y equals m parentheses x minus x. So negative x, we bring that on minus, so y minus 6 equals negative 1 parentheses x minus 4. Okay, so for this one, we know that our 6 is on the other side of the equal sign, so we definitely need to do the opposite equation, the opposite thing. Words are falling. Okay, so since we're subtracting, it's negative, so we're subtracting 6, so we would have to add it on the other side. So 6 plus negative 6 is 0, and 6 plus 4 is 10, so we bring down the 10 and add it up to x. And you don't have to bring the 1, because the 1's always in front of an x, and it's the same thing, and so we bring down the y, and so our equation is y equals x plus 10. That would be our equation for the perpendicular line of J and L passing through K. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. Okay, so Lucy and Barbara began saving money the same week. The table below shows the models for the amount of money Lucy and Barbara had saved after X weeks. After how many weeks will Lucy and Barbara have the same amount of money saved? Okay, for this one, I was giving both Lucy's and Barbara's models of amount of money they saved after X weeks. So all I did for this one, I didn't really do a lot of work for this one. All I did, plug in all the numbers, A, B, and C, and D, and obviously C is our answer. And the reason I got that was because all I needed to know is, okay, so if they both had the same amount of weeks, which that's what it's asking for, all I had to do was plug in the numbers, and I obviously 10 times parentheses 8 plus 5 equals 85, and 7.5 parentheses 8 plus 25 equals 85. Okay. So our next question. The table below shows the cost of the pizza based on the number of toppings. Okay, so which function represents the cost of the pizza with no toppings? For this one, I knew that 12 was our starting point, which is charging for one topping. So I definitely knew that we were supposed to have our 12 in the function. And we add, and for this one, I found the difference between 12 and the cost of the toppings. So every time it increased 1.5. So 2 toppings, and so 1.5 plus 12 is 13.50. So I put parentheses, which our answer is A, and we can see that because we know that the difference between the cost in the column is 1.5, and then N is unknown toppings, how many, and we subtract 1 because at the top we added plus 12, but we know that it's one topping, so we don't know exactly how many toppings. So we subtract that one number, and then we put in the total number of toppings. So A is definitely our answer, and I hope that was very simple. If not, I am very sorry explaining this. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. Okay, so 42. There were originally 4 trees in an orchard. Each year, the owner planted the same amount of trees. In the 29th year, there were 178 trees in the orchard. Which function, T of n, can be used to determine the number of trees in the orchard in any years of n? Okay, so for this one, I plugged it into my calculator, and and here's the directions how I plugged it into my direction. So I press stat, and then edit, and then stat, then calc, and then press number 4. And you should get a linear regression, which is what our linear regression formula is: y equals ax plus b equals bx and n. And so a equals 6, and then b is 4, and that is the same thing as c, which is 6, and which is our slope, and then plus 4. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so approximately what % of the boys' ages is more than one difference from the age predicted by the line of the best fit for data? Okay, so for this one, all I did was plugged it into my calculator. I pressed stat, edit stat, calc, number 4, and then I got that equation. And then